Hey up, it's Steve from that old Yorkshire Geek, and you may have noticed earlier on, I did a review, or not a review, because I haven't watched it all, obviously, but give my thoughts on the new Willow series, and I wasn't over impressed, so go check out my review, my thoughts video. I'll put the link in the description, or just go to my channel and it's there. So you may have seen that, but meanwhile, back at the ranch, there's been some words from the producer, Jonathan Kasdan, and he said the sequel series' central lesbian romance keeps alive that spirit of moving the fantasy genre into a contemporary sound, which sounds like nonsense to me, but let's have a look. This is from Bounding into Comics by, who's written this one? Spencer Bakula. Is that how you pronounce it? Bakula? I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's a cool name, whatever. Right, so let's have a read, shall we? Right, Willow producer, I've just read that. Right, according to the producer, Jonathan Kasdan, the decision to feature a lesbian, spelling mistakes, or grammatical errors, to feature a lesbian romance front and centre in the upcoming Disney Plus Willow series, well, it started now, it's not upcoming, was born out of the spirit of moving the fantasy genre into a contemporary sound found in George Lucas's original film. I don't think so. I don't think the original Willow was very contemporary. It was a classical fantasy movie. I can't think of anything that was contemporary in that. It was a pretty standard, it was quite a decent standard fantasy movie. That's what it was. In my opinion, Kasdan, who also served as Willow's lead developer, by the way, I think he's the son, isn't he, of Lawrence Kasdan. The great writer and director, but mostly known for his script duties on Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and the Raiders of the Lost Ark films, the first one anyway. Anyway, he offered his thoughts on the romance between protagonist Dove, Ellie Bamber, and Kit, Ruby Cruz. But they've got that wrong, so it's not them, is it? It's Jade and Kit. Who plays Jade? Jade Claymore is played by Erin Kellyman, Freckle Jesus, as you may know her. And she wants to be the first female knight in the land. Anyway, and there's the great Warwick Davis as Willow Hoofgood. No, Hoofgood, not Hoofgood, Hoofgood. But sadly lacking in the first two episodes anyway. So, like he's reading, I said in my review, I keep calling it a review, but it's not really a review. That it's like he's reading his lines off cards or off an auto cue. He's very stilted. Right. Anyway, so there's Willow. Right. Let's carry on reading. As explained by Polygon's Susan Polo. Is it Polo or Polo? I don't know. I'd pronounce that Polo because that's what it says, doesn't it? Susanna Polo. Whose misfired attempt at hyping the romance instead comes off as a comprehensive listing of every terrible writing habit representative of modern Hollywood. Quote, Willow's two mains are Kit and Dove. See, they've got this wrong. She's saying it's Kit and Jade. Dove, spoilers. If you haven't watched it, go away. If you don't care, like me, fair enough. Dove is a Laura Dannon, and she's like a scullery maid, cook, whatever, in the castle. She's been hidden away. She's had her memory wiped, so she doesn't realise she's a Laura Dannon. And Jade is Freckle Jesus. She's got blonde hair, by the way, as Dove. And I'm sure in the original film, Laura Dannon was a little ginger-haired baby. I'm sure she was. This could be a bit of Mandela effect going on, I don't know, but I'm sure she was a ginger-haired little girl, baby, which is why I originally thought Freckle Jesus, Erin, whatever, what's she called? Erin Kellyman. It's really hard to say that, isn't it? Erin Kellyman. Say it 5 times quickly. I thought she was going to be a Laura Dannon, but she's not. Dove is. Anyway, both young women who wrestle with the legacy of Laura Dannon. But Kit's own Bildungsroman, what the hell does that mean? May come to overshadow Doves in conversations about the show. Is that a real word? I'm going to have to look that up. Does it do it in search the web for that? Right, a novel dealing with one person's formative years or spiritual education. Very good. Very good, Spencer, for using that a big word. It's up there with verisimilitude, isn't it? Anyway, may come to overshadow Doves in conversations about the show, as a good part of her journey is realising that she's in mutual love with her best friend. But she's wrong, she's talking about the wrong thing. Dove is in love, it rhymes, with Kit's brother, Eric. That's who she's in love with, because he proposed to her in the first episode. Anyway, in a long overdue and welcome development for fantasy cinema television, adds Polo, and the Disney Corporation itself, Kit, a self-centred tomboy princess who spends most of the series dressed like the Dread Pirate Roberts, who apparently is the fella in Princess Bride, I think, but I'm not entirely sure, because you know what, I've never seen that film. I once tried watching it, I didn't like it and I turned it off, sorry. Anyway, and Jade, an orphan girl who wants to become her country's first female knight, and as though someone took every tomboy fantasy heroine in the young adult literature canon, tossed them in a blender, and flipped a big mad scientist lever from subtext to text. That's Dove. / Alora Dannon. Asked by Polo for insight into both the process of developing the romance and whether or not he had received any caution against its inclusion from Disney higher-ups, Kasdan confirmed there was no pushback. What's interesting is, I hope and I believe we're at a moment where you're going to see a paradigm shift in that, said the Solo, a Star Wars story writer. And that did well, didn't it, for Lucasfilm and Disney? Lost money. But I didn't mind the film. It was a bit brown, but I didn't mind the film. Not brown, beige. A bit beige, you know, the colour scheme. Could have been a bit more bright, couldn't it? Star Wars, for God's sake. And Freckle Jesus were in that, by the way. Erin Kelly, man. And hopefully the way that it's going to happen is that these kinds of queer stories, did they put that in? I don't know. Particularly like this one, that were just organic to the narrative we were telling, find their way in, and it becomes less of a surprising and unusual thing to see. I mean, I'm not against, same-sex relationships in anything, as long as it's, not the be-all and end-all, which I suppose in this case it wasn't really. We knew they were close at the beginning of the series. We saw them training together, and then we see them talking, and we think, oh, they're good friends. And now we're thinking, back of my mind, I was thinking, it's going to get more than that. And it did, because they had a big kiss. Kit is supposed to marry, Kit the princess is supposed to marry Flash Thompson from Spider-Man. She's supposed to marry him, but obviously she doesn't want to, because she's in love with Jade. Anyway, because it's a part of the landscape of the world around us, just like the diversity elements of casting, continued Kasdan. Yeah, it's part of the world around us and the landscape and stuff, and part, of our society. It's not that big a part, though, is it? Not that big a part. I mean, it is in Hollywood. I think in the Hollywood and entertainment world, LGBTQIA, whatever, numbers are higher, aren't they, in that arena than in the general population. Was it something like 3% of the general population identifies as LGBTQIA, whatever. Anyway, whatever. Right, if you look at, but nothing against it, but I think it's overrepresented in modern cinema and TV, in my opinion. But I don't care. I'm just mentioning it. If you look at the original Willow, by no fault of anyone, it's not very diverse. He then asserted, and as we enter 2022, the world has changed in the way we're absorbing entertainment, and the faces we're reflecting in entertainment have expanded enormously. We hope the show can be growing as the world grows. This thing with diversity, it's doing my head in. It's doing my head in. Nobody complains about, South Korean films not being diverse, or Japanese films not being diverse, or Chinese films not being diverse, or, I don't know, a film from, a film made in Kenya won't be diverse, will it? So why has Western films got to be diverse? I know we live in a diverse culture, but why do films have to be, more diverse than the culture itself? But I'm not really bothered as long as it helps, as long as it doesn't spoil the story. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't take you out of it. Like having a Black Anne Boleyn, which happened in TV, not in real life. Anyway, where are we? I've read that answer. Right, there's a picture of a Mudmander and Graydon. Oh, that's Flash Thompson from Spider-Man. And it looks like a mud skipper, doesn't it? A big giant mud skipper, that fish that goes on the mud. Anyway, just as frankly the movie was, he concluded. One thing that I love about the movie is that you have this very classical fantasy, but at the heart of it you have this very contemporary Val Kilmer character who has a sound that it's unlike any other 80s fantasy character that had ever been. And it was important to us to keep alive that spirit of moving the genre into a contemporary sound. That was just nonsense, wasn't it? That was just word salad. That's what that was. And besides, the Val Kilmer character, Mad Martigan, they've got rid of him. He ain't even in it. He's mentioned, but apparently, I thought maybe he died off screen because Val Kilmer's not well. We see Joanne Worley. We see her. Obviously she's older and she plays a good part as Queen Sorsha. But we don't see Val because Phil, is not well. We saw him in Top Gun Maverick, didn't we? And you can see him there. He's not well. So that's why they didn't have him. They couldn't have him running about and sword fighting, could they? But they could have had him as a poorly, an ailing king, a bit like the king in House of the Dragon. But they didn't. They had him as a dad that's gone. We thought he'd got, I thought he'd died, but then we'll find out he left, and then we learned that the thought he'd gone, he'd taken the Laura Dannon and hidden her away for safekeeping. But then they found out that didn't happen. So he's just gone. He's nowhere. Don't know where he is. He's a absentee father, of course. Just like Han Solo was in the Disney Star Wars. They can't help themselves. Anyway, as many readers may have observed, Kasdan's allusion to moving a genre of writing into a vague sense of modern audio, well, just like that recap, it makes no sense at all. By the way, going back to this, Val Kilmer's character, he didn't sound like unlike any other 80s fantasy character. I don't know. He spoke in a way that were fitting with the film, but he wasn't like saying dude and all that, and sounding like a modern contemporary character. He was still speaking in a way that fit with what everybody else was speaking. But everybody else spoke in a similar way, particularly the Daikeenis and the Nelwyns. They spoke in a similar way, but they weren't in a contemporary way. It were like in a filmic way, in a higher. I don't know how to explain it. It's like if you watch Star Trek, bringing Star Trek into it again. You see a Star Trek script and you see them speak in the way they do on in the episodes, particularly the Next Generation. You wouldn't speak like that in real life, would you? You wouldn't. But it's on Star Trek, so you accept it. And it's same in a similar way. It's like that in fantasy. They speak in a certain way, and it fits. But they're not giving it all dude and man and yeah and all that. And okay. They don't say okay a lot, 'cause that's a modern thing, isn't it? They say all right. So there you go. So making it contemporary just didn't work. I mean, they had a bloody pop song over the end credits of episode 1. Where are we? And yet interestingly, by the way, they did a recap at the beginning of episode 1, which were pointless in my... Yeah, it told you about Elora Dannon and all that, but it was just to get you thinking, oh, we're going to see all these old characters again, Mad Martigan and Willow and Elora Dannon and all them. And, yeah, we did see all of them eventually, apart from Mad Martigan. But, Anyway, yet interestingly, Kasdan is not the only Disney producer in recent weeks to justify changes made between a given source material and its 2022 live-action adaptation. In a recent interview with The Wrap, Black Panther Wakanda Forever producer Nate Moore offered an equally nonsensical assertion in defence of the Mesoamerican changes made to Namor's character in the tradition, character in the tradition from the page to the screen. There weren't really things we couldn't do from a character perspective for him, said Moore, which is good because clearly we took a ton of inspiration from the source material, but we also made some big changes to really anchor him in that world, in the truth that publishing never really landed on, I would argue, in a big way. I don't know what he's talking about. But I'm not overly familiar with the Submariner in the comics. I think maybe I read one when I was a kid. Because I do remember seeing it in Submariner in a comic, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And I think I saw one, and I thought, and they didn't look Mesoamerican. If anything, he looked Asian. To be honest, he had an Asian appearance. He looked a bit like an Asian fellow with like Dracula hair. And still don't understand why he has wings on his feet. He lives underwater. You don't have wings underwater unless you're a penguin. But not that. But they don't look like penguin wings, do they? Anyway, what's the connection? Admittedly, there may be none at all. This may just be a case of parallel thinking where two separate Disney producers just happen to trip over their own notions of self-aggrandization while speaking to the press. On the other hand, it may indicate that having realised that audiences across the political spectrum have grown tired of their constant virtue signalling and no longer buy the usual marketing lines, Disney has adopted a strategy of hiding the abysmal quality of its recent products with verbal smokescreens. Yeah. And there's Namor with his package that apparently got airbrushed out in the final film. After all, as seen time and time again, no matter how poor the actual product or how hollow its messaging, all the House of the Mouse has to do to garner widespread praise is offer their acolytes the vague sense that consuming the latest product will contribute to social progress. When it's that easy, why would anyone offer any more than a barely coherent string of words, which is easy for me to say, isn't it? That just sound good. Hey, what was this? Toth, Charlie Ross in Lucasfilm's Willow. He played one of the baddies. They had a really poor, slow-speed horse chase. Oh, I haven't seen them yet. Well, I haven't, anyway. I didn't get very far in episode 2. Oh, is that it? Have I done? Right, that's it. All right, Willow premieres on Disney Plus November 30th. Right, that's it. So there you go. So they're making it more contemporary, which, they succeeded, but didn't make it good. Didn't make it good. I hated it. As I said, I didn't like episode 1. I managed to get through that. And then I started watching episode 2, and the 10 minutes, I thought, I can't watch any more of this. It's making, you feel yourself getting angry. It's not like in the pit of your stomach there. You just feel it rising, and I had to turn it off. Right, so we'll leave it there. There you go. Contemporary, which is nonsense. So, wherever you are in the universe, look after each other, and until next time, I'll see thee.